Before we get into today's episode, I want to take a moment to say thank you. This is our 40th episode. And whether you've been rocking with me since the beginning or this is your first listen, I am so glad that we're in this together. And to mark this prestigious occasion, I want to give you something special. My communication course, Articulate. Articulate is for people like you who want to speak clearly, listen generously, and navigate uncomfortable or hard conversations without losing themselves in the process. So if you've ever felt like you are walking on eggshells, or if you're prone to shutting down, or you just feel like you're not being heard, this course is for you. Normally, Articulate is $99, but because this is episode 40, I am offering it to my favorite listener, you, for $29. That's a $70 savings. You can use code 40, all spelled out FORTY, at checkout. Go to staceyherrera.com/articulate to learn more and grab it. And let this be the season that you stop performing in conversations and start practicing the kind of communication that builds connection for real. All right, let's get into the episode. There's a lot of talk in healing spaces about emotional safety. And I get it, I really do. Safety is good. It's like being able to let your shoulders drop for the first time all day long, right? But, of course, there's a but. I feel like we might be turning feeling emotionally safe into a non-negotiable requirement for growth, expansion, and connection. And so I want to challenge that because I don't think it's always true. In fact, some of the most important and biggest growth leaps that I've ever had came when I felt unsafe. So that's what this episode is about. So we are going to talk about why the idea of emotional safety gets overused and often misunderstood. We also are going to talk about the difference between actual harm and healthy discomfort, why evolution doesn't happen in your comfort zone, and how waiting to feel safe before you move sometimes keeps you stuck. And lastly, we're going to talk about how to recognize when unsafe feelings are actually your system resisting change and not necessarily warning you of danger. I want to really emphasize that this episode is not about dismissing your nervous system. I just want to make sure that we're getting clear on what our nervous systems are trying to tell us. So let's get into it. Like I said before, the word safety is thrown around a lot, particularly in personal development, self-help spaces. There's a lot of talk about it on the internets, but a lot of the time, what we're actually talking about is comfort, familiarity, predictability, low risk. And those are good things, right? They make us feel steady, they make us feel soothed, but comfort is not always what we need. And most of the time, comfort does not align with growth. Growth is disruptive. People, we should be warned about it because a lot of us would stay exactly where we are if we knew, but I'm telling you the real. Growth is disruptive. It shifts you, it shifts your relationships, it shifts your innards, it shifts your perspective, it shifts how you see yourself. It forces new conversations, it challenges default responses. It pulls us completely out of our comfort zone. And sometimes when we find ourselves in unfamiliar, uncertain, and maybe even scary situations, it doesn't mean that it's harmful. It just means that it's new. And new isn't always safe in the sense that you feel calm, right? But it's necessary. And I know that you have probably heard me say this and other people say this. Trust the process. But this is the thing about the process. There is no process without pressure, and pressure feels unsafe. Growth does not happen when we feel cozy. It happens when we are stretched, when we're challenged, when patterns are disrupted. And evolution, I know you've heard me say this before, evolution is merely the response to adversity. And adversity, especially emotional adversity, almost always feels unsafe. So if you're waiting to feel at ease before you take a step, you might be waiting forever because, of course, our nervous systems are trained to protect us at all cost, right? Not necessarily trained to expand, although we can teach our nervous system how to do that. But our default is fear response, fight or flight, freeze, fawn, right? And I want to be clear. What I'm saying is not a pass for harm. I am not green lighting abuse, cruelty, or chaos. I just want you to understand the difference between a boundary being crossed and an edge being met. So discomfort is a signal, always and forever, but it's not always a stop sign. Sometimes discomfort is just your body saying, uh-oh, we haven't done this before. We do not know how this ends. Abort. We've never said this out loud before. We never made this kind of choice. We have never stood 10 toes down in this reality. So sometimes it's not fear that we're feeling. It's just the contraction before the expansion. That was good. Yeah, that's what it is. Sometimes it's just the contraction before the expansion. Now, there is another side to this that we also need to consider because sometimes when we say I don't feel safe, we use it as a shield. It's a stalling tactic, a way to stay in the waiting room of our own life. We can use it to opt out of hard conversations. Another way to say this, I don't feel safe. Another way to say this that is happening a lot right now is I'm protecting my peace. But sometimes that too, again, is a shield, a way to not engage, a way to opt out of necessary decision making, a way to avoid being accountable with ourselves or with other people. But growth is not about avoiding risk. It's about learning to move with awareness, even when it feels uncomfortable. And it almost always feels uncomfortable. You do not have to feel safe to move forward. You just have to have a moment of bravery so that you can move through it. So, how do you know when you're actually unsafe versus when you're just scared of what's next? And that is a great question. So, here is a question that I suggest you ask yourself. Is this person, this place, this activity, this thing diminishing me? Or is it asking more of me? I'm going to ask you again. So is this person, this decision, this thing, is it diminishing me or asking more of me? Now, if you feel like you're disappearing or shrinking or twisting yourself into a pretzel, if you feel like you're losing your center, that's how you know it's harm. But if you feel like you're being invited to grow, to speak up, to choose differently, to take a risk, that's expansion. And it probably won't feel safe, at least not at first, but it does not mean that there's anything wrong. So if you've been waiting to feel ready, if you're waiting to feel calm, if you're waiting to feel certain, if you're waiting to have no doubts, you might be mistaking stillness for safety. And if you've been calling every uncomfortable moment unsafe, you could potentially be denying yourself the thing that you are longing for, change. So love is not always about feeling safe. Sometimes love is inviting you to risk giving up the version of yourself that is done surviving. Becoming who you're meant to be will always feel unfamiliar at first, and unfamiliar things can make us feel unsafe. And the way we navigate that is simply by staying curious. Ask yourself, is this diminishing me or inviting me to become more? Thank you for listening and being on this journey with me, for stretching, for being willing. There's so much more to come. We are becoming more of ourselves, and I'm so glad to be doing this with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And don't forget to check out Articulate. Save that $70. Communicate better. And come back next week. I love you.